Hey, welcome to our webinar on epigenetics. This is called "You Are Not Your DNA Is Not Your Destiny." I'm recording this after the workshop that we did this last week, so for all of you that couldn't make it, so you can get this information because everyone needs this, and I want you to share this with your friends, families, coworkers, loved ones, anybody that you want to end up on the cruise ship with you rather than the nursing home. So before I get into the PowerPoint, just real quick, there's probably three people I'm talking to right now that are watching this. Number one, if you're a patient, maybe you came to the workshop and you just want to get some review or some things maybe you missed at the workshop, so welcome. Number two, maybe you were out of town or had something you could not miss, and I wanted to get this information to you. But we also might have some people that were quote unquote too busy to be there. I heard some excuses from people that couldn't come because of things that were, in my opinion, not nearly as important as your health. And I will tell you, and I say this with all the love in the world, because this is my job, is that the nursing homes and hospitals are filled with people that were too busy to take care of their health. So if I really encourage you, thank you that you're watching this video for sure. But I also just want to remind people all the time that the reason we do the live events is I've been doing this for 21 years, and the science of life transformation and rapid change, nothing substitutes for a live event. So because the way you actually learn and the way your brain works is you learn as much from context cues of the room, like the people around you and what the people said, or how I said something, or the way something happened in the room that you starts you remembering things a certain way, but also motivates you a certain way. And there's power in that room. We had packed room full of people. It was awesome. And I'm telling you, so I just want to encourage you, if you weren't able to make it to this one, let's get you to the next one and make sure we get you to those ones moving forward. The reason we do them live, I mean, this would be much easier for me, but unfortunately easy is the path to the nursing home and the stuff that you don't want. So I encourage you to get to those live, because I guarantee it's going to absolutely be worth it moving forward. So, but today let's go ahead and get into why we're talking about epigenetics or genetics at all and what that means. Okay, because I started doing some research on this. Let me share my screen with you here and we'll get going. Where are we at? Okay. All right. The reason I started doing research on this for myself, because I'm turning 50 soon, and I looked at my family and I watched most of them have Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, or cancer. And I know that those things have a genetic component, but I also know I'm not a victim of my genes. So I wanted to know what I could do about that, because I want to make sure I take care of my family and my kids don't end up taking care of me prematurely, like mostly happened with my family. So that's really my big why. I want to be here for my kids, my grandkids. I want to be independent. I want to be healthy. I want to be a resource for them. And that's my goal. So just, oh, by the way, you'll get the kind of short and dirty version of this instead of the hour-long version of this. So if I talk quick, you can go back and rewind a little bit. But the reason I want to give you the quick version of this is I'm going to give you some action steps that you need, but I also want to give you the background as well. So number one, why DNA isn't your destiny. There's a field called epigenetics. And the issue is what we were taught in like medical school, and what most doctors or people were taught in biology, is that you're a victim of your genes. If you remember Mendel, he's the guy who came up with genetics and why plants look the way that they look. So there's if you have X chromosome and this chromosome, and you combine it with this chromosome and this chromosome, you're going to get a wrinkled pea pod or a green pea pod or a green pea or whatever. And it's basically, so whatever genetic material you got from your mom and your dad determines everything about you. And that was what we've been taught for a long time. And what a lot of people still believe is your genes. It's the number of people that tell me my mom had X, so I'm going to have X. And they'll say things like migraines, which are really very small genetic components to that. So that's just a complete misnomer. But there are some things that do run in families. So like if your mom had migraines and you have migraines, it's probably not genetic. It's probably something lifestyle related. But if your mom had Alzheimer's and you had Alzheimer's, there could be some genetic triggers. But what I'm going to tell you is there are lifestyle ways to turn those genes off. Okay. So you can actually influence your genes. So there's something called epigenetics. Okay. So epigenetics says that DNA is not your destiny. So this is the proof for that. This is a rat called the agouti rat. And it has a defect in a gene called the agouti gene. And I won't get into the whole reason why, but it's called a methylation defect, which means your body's usually deficient in absorbing folic acid and B12. And that's very important for your body to make a bunch of chemicals that you need to be healthy. So this rat, they get sick and die early. They die about 40% earlier than normal rats. They have diabetes, they have obesity, and they get a lot of cancer. So what the experimenters did is they gave this mom right here, that while she was pregnant, they gave her folic acid and vitamin B12 to basically turn the gene off, that agouti gene that caused her to be so sick. And she gave birth to this rat over here. And these rats live a normal life. They have the same exact genetic components. This rat has the same genes as this rat, but this rat, the gene is turned off that causes all this sickness because of what the mother ate. Think about that for a second. What the mom eats changed the actual health of the baby. What the mom ate while she was pregnant changed the health of the baby for the rest of its life. So you can change the genes that you actually pass down. And that's something that I wanted to do. Like, I had really bad genes passed to me. I want to pass good genes down to my kids and my grandkids, right? So I'm not changing the genes. I'm changing whether they're turned on or turned off when they get sent to my kids. And I'll talk a lot more about that in just a couple of minutes. But then you can also change your own genes. And that's the bigger part of this. If you're not, I'm not having any more kids, but what I do for the rest of my life can turn off and turn on my genes. So there's a great study on prostate cancer, and they looked at men that have prostate cancer, did a study, and instead of doing normal prostate cancer treatment, which is largely ineffective for most people, they started doing lifestyle changes. These men did 90 days of lifestyle changes, which is a lot of what I'm going to talk about here. So they started reducing their stress, eating a better diet, exercising, things that we're going to teach you today. And those people were able to turn off 452 genes that cause cancer, and they turned on 50 genes that prevent cancer. So they did genetic testing before the interventions and after the interventions, and they had turned off genes that cause cancer, and they had turned on genes that prevent cancer. Think about that for a second. Just lifestyle changes. So it's not what they got from their parents, it's the environment that turned those genes on or off, and that's called epigenetics. There's a great book called Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And this is a quote from that book. He said, "You are not a victim of your genetics. If anything, you're a victim of your perception." Now, what do I mean by you're a victim of your perception? Your perception actually determines your environment of your body. Okay, so we'll get into this, what is called thoughts, toxins, and traumas. Those three things determine the environment of your body. Okay, and I want you to think about the environment of your body being controlled by one system, and that's your nervous system. So your nervous system is what controls the environment in your body. If you need more stomach acid, your brain tells your stomach to produce more stomach acid. So your brain changes the environment in your body. Okay. If you have a sodium potassium pump and you need more potassium inside the cell and more sodium outside the cell, your brain tells your body to do that. So it changes and monitors the environment. So your brain and your spinal cord is constantly monitoring your environment, a lot like a computer for your car. So as you know, the reason people can't get cars right now is they don't have chips for the cars. The reason you can't work on your own car now is because you have to plug it into a computer to find out what's wrong with it. Well, you have the same thing, and that computer is your brain and your spinal cord, right? So how you program this computer determines how your car functions, right? That's how you can tell. You could change the function of your car through that computer, and you can tell how your car is functioning through that computer. So my question to you is, who's programming your computer? Who's programming your nervous system? All right. Now you're programming some of it through the things that you do every day. But really the way this works is what programs or what determines your environment is traumas, thoughts, and toxins. Right. This is an old natural health principle. Traumas, thoughts, and toxins. So trauma is physical damage to your brain and your spinal cord is going to alter your environment and alter your ability to control or interpret the environment. If I pinch the nerve that's going to my stomach cannot send messages back to my brain telling it to produce more stomach acid, so you don't get more stomach acid. So you have a lot of indigestion issues, right? Because the computer can no longer talk to the body the way it's supposed to. So physical trauma can do that if you damage the nerves, right? Number two, thoughts. Thoughts are going to change the way your body reacts to the environment, because thoughts cause stress. We'll talk about it in a few minutes, and how stress changes your environment in your body. It changes your hormones. It changes your cortisol levels. It changes your body's ability to do things. If you're in fight or flight mode, which is the stressed mode that most people are in, your body doesn't react the same way as it did if you're in rest, digest, and heal mode, because fight or flight is meant for you to run up against a bear and fight that thing or run from it. Well, in that case, your body makes the decision to send blood out to the arms and legs and away from your digestive system. So a lot of people that are in fight or flight mode or stressed, they have poor digestion. Your body's going to make the ability to make the decision to raise your blood pressure so you can fight or run better. So a lot of people that are stressed have high blood pressure. But there's also the way that you think changes your actions, and we'll get into that in just a couple of minutes as well. And then the last one, toxins. Toxins for tonight's or today's purpose is going to be what you're eating. All right. So the food you're putting in your body, the chemicals you're putting in your body through food or through drugs, those are also going to alter your environment. If you eat certain foods, that changes the environment of your body and the function of your body the way it's designed to function. So I always say your body knows exactly what to do with an apple. It does not know what to do with an apple pie from McDonald's. So let me give you an example of our medical or sick care model, the way we do toxins, thoughts, and traumas, and why I think this, the way we handle the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, was a massive mistake. I'm not the only one saying that, by the way. This is a great book by Alex Berenson. Wrote a book called Pandemia, How Coronavirus Hysteria Took Over Our Government, Rights, and Lives. He was a guy who was banned on Twitter for being a conspiracy theorist. And it has now been proven 2 years later that everything he said on Twitter was true. And he was just saying things like, hey, the masks don't prevent you from getting the infection. That's not up for debate. That's true. The masks were never meant to prevent you from getting sick. They were meant to protect somebody else, but there's still plenty of people that thought it was protecting them. He also said that the virus or the vaccine doesn't prevent infection or transmission. And that's what got him banned on Twitter. But guess what? How many people do you know that have been vaccinated 3 or 4 times and they still have had COVID 3 or 4 times? So it doesn't prevent that. It's just a therapeutic, if anything. That's really what it is. And that's, again, it's not up for debate. But so I want to just walk through how, when the next pandemic comes or any health trauma or health problem comes, we can do things differently. So first thing that happened when coronavirus hit, to start with the thoughts, is we told everyone, be afraid. Okay. What with the overriding emotion for this thing was fear. Okay. Stay inside. Don't be around anybody. If you touch or breathe on anybody, they're going to die. There was a lot of that. And this is uniquely American, by the way. In other parts of the world, there was about 50-50 good and bad news when it came to COVID all during those couple of years, which means, hey, there's this bad thing is happening because it is. But then there's also, hey, there's good things that are happening, right? Which means there's less infections, or we found out that you can take vitamin D and reduce your risk of really bad reaction to COVID, or there's a lot of good things. Well, we didn't get that. We got 95% negative, and that's proven through some studies looking at our media. So we told everybody, be afraid. The reason that's a problem is because your immune system goes in the toilet when you're afraid. Okay, because you're in fight or flight mode. Your immune system immediately goes down when you're afraid. If you want to fight off a virus, you do not want to be afraid. You want to be empowered. And there's a lot of empowering things that people were not hearing. They weren't hearing that they could have been taking vitamin D, that they could have been losing weight. If most people lost 20 pounds, the risk of severe COVID reaction went down dramatically. They weren't taught to avoid sugar. There's all these things that we could have been teaching people to do to get healthier, but instead we said, stay inside, stay away from everybody. And then what do we do during that time? Toxins. Well, alcohol sales went through the roof. Sugar and eating went through the roof because most people the average person that gained weight gained almost 30 pounds during COVID. So we got scared, stayed inside, ate a bunch of food that was bad for us, did a lot of other things that were bad for us that messed up our immune systems. And then, we shut down gyms or anything. A lot of people couldn't even go outside in certain places to go exercise. So exercise is a huge portion of your immune system. So there's a lot of different ways we could have handled this better by saying, yeah, there's a threat, there's a problem, there's something we need to address here, but let's be proactive with this thing and let's start handling the thoughts, toxins, and traumas in a proactive way. So I would have said, hey, yeah, there's this thing going on, but the truth is there's the majority of people, especially children, have nothing to worry about. So we don't have to worry about all the kids getting sick. If you're under 50, most people don't have a whole lot to worry about. If you're over 50 or you have all these comorbidities, let's start doing something about it, right? And I've had several patients that did that reversed their diabetes, got their blood pressure under control, lost 20 pounds, and got COVID and did fine, right? That wouldn't have otherwise. So number one, I would have done that. Then we could have changed those lifestyle things, and then got out and exercised and doing those things. So this is going to be the same thing when we get into tonight: Alzheimer's, heart disease, and cancer. Okay. So A couple of things here on why this is important. Your mindset is important. One of my mentors used to say thoughts are about 88% of the determining your health. Traumas are 6%, toxins are 6%. I'm like, wait a minute. Nutrition's a big part of this. Your spine and nervous system are a big part of this. But his point was, yes, but if you don't have the thoughts happening right, you're not going to do anything to take care of these other ones over here anyway. So I'm going to talk to you just about a couple of things that I see really damage people when it comes to your thinking. First one is, it's not my fault, it's my genes. So it's not my fault, it's my genes. But we've just proven that that's not true with the agouti rat, with the study on prostate cancer. So you got to understand, it's not your genes, it's your choices. Okay, most of us are not sick because of our genes. We're sick because of our choices that we make with what we put in our bodies, how we take care of our bodies, how we choose to live our lives from a lifestyle way. So the good news is you're not in control of your genes, what you got, the genes that you got, but you are in control of what? Your choices. That's empowering. It should be empowering. If you're watching this right now, you're in control of wherever you're at. If you do not like where you're at health wise, you have the power to change it. And that's what we're here to help you with. Number two, my doctor is in charge of my health. So, couple problems with that. Your doctor was never meant to be in control of your health. And any doctor, me or any other doctor, never meant to be in control of your health. You are in control of your health. You have to advocate for yourself. I had a patient not too long ago said, oh, my doctor's never going to let me get off my blood pressure medication. And the problem with that statement is, what do you mean he's not going to let you? He's not your boss. Your doctor is a partner that works with you. And if you want to get off your blood pressure medication because you don't like the way it makes you feel and you want to do the changes, make the changes that are going to reduce your blood pressure naturally, I would fire any doctor that didn't support my goals there. I mean, it's just as simple as that. But number two is who's in control of, who's in charge of your doctor. And we talked about this, like so many doctors are like, they're inundated by pharmaceutical reps and the pharmaceutical companies that advertise like crazy on the news and have patients are coming in asking for this drug or that drug because they saw it on TV. So the doctor is not the problem. The doctor is not in charge of your health. It's the pharmaceutical companies, the spending and the things that they're doing that have influenced our entire model. So if you're not in control of your health, I hate to tell you, the pharmaceutical companies are in control of your health. So we want to put you in control of your health. And so that means you have to be your own advocate. You have to do, the research. You have to ask questions. You have to ask good questions. And one great question you can ask any doctor you ever go to is why? Hey, you have X, Y, the doctor says you have X, Y, and Z condition. The question you should ask is why? Why do I have that? You have diabetes. I had a patient recently. She had high blood sugar, and the doctor wrote her a prescription for a diabetes medication that she would take the rest of her life without discussing it with her at all. And so if you ask the question, why do I have diabetes? The doctor would have to say, because of your diet, because you eat things that are too high on the glycemic index. And you could say, well, why don't I just change my diet? Because you can, right? But we don't think that way. We think, what drug do I need to take instead of why do I have that problem? Another one, health is too expensive or takes too much time. One of my mentors always used to say, if you think health is expensive, try disease. A little bit, might cost a little bit extra money to go get organic fruits and vegetables or to get adjusted or have chiropractic care, take care of your spine. But it costs a whole lot more money if you're in the nursing home spending, $80,000 to $100,000 a year out of pocket. Guys, that you got to understand, health is a drop in the bucket compared to what disease costs, right? So I encourage you, invest in your health. Every time I buy an organic fruit and vegetable, or I pay my gym membership, that's an investment in my health. I hate spending money, but I love investing money. Okay. And then the last one, eating right is hard. I wanted to show you this picture because eating right is not hard. Having your toes amputated because of diabetes and having massive open ulcers, that's hard. And we just got to put it in perspective, because if you said eating right is hard, I might agree with you. But then I look at this and I go, yeah, that's actually not that hard. That's hard. Walking on that foot is hard. Having to worry about that is hard. Your parts falling apart and having them removed, that's hard. So you got to choose your heart. So what's hard? Is it actually cooking food and preparing it? If that's really hard, then we probably just need a little bit of perspective there. So, and the other thing is, you can do hard things. I want to encourage you. You can do hard things. Humans have the amazing ability to do things when they're confronted with challenge. You can do hard things. And if you do hard things for a while, it becomes easy. Okay. Okay. One last thing. This is a little bit of wisdom from my 17-year-old. She said recently, she's like, I learned that if I do hard things, then my life will be easy later. And that's brilliant for a 17-year-old. She's like, I learned if I do hard things, now my life will be easy later. rather than choosing the easy thing now. And that's a way I like to live my life. If I do the hard things now, my life will be a lot easier later on. Okay, so which genes are we talking about today? So we have the BRCA gene, breast cancer, ApoE4, which is Alzheimer's, and MYH7, which is cardiomyopathy. Okay, so that's heart disease. So we're going to get into what these do. I had some questions like, do I test for these? If you did test for them, and you can get them done usually online. If you Google any of those, you can find out if you have these genes or these gene defects. Usually $225 or $250 to $2,500, depending on which test you're getting. So do you test or not test? I have not tested myself for these because my motto down here is live like you have it. I'm going to assume that I have it because this is only 3 genes. There's billions of genes. So if you're negative for these 3, my problem is that might cause a false sense of security. So you're like, oh, I don't have BRCA, so I don't need to worry about it. Well, there's a ton of other genes that also trigger breast cancer. I don't have ApoE4. Well, there's a lot of other factors, lifestyle factors that cause Alzheimer's. There's still a cause, even if it's not genetic, there's still causes of Alzheimer's. So if it gives you a false sense of security, I don't recommend it. If you really found out that you had ApoE4 and it made you really eat well and take care of your body, then okay, I think it's not a bad test to get. But again, I want to live like I have it. So I do all the protocols that I'm talking about because I'm assuming I do have those genes just to be safe. Plus, all the other protocols, that I'm doing are helping me in a million different ways as well. And then the other was, what do you do with the information? And this is really the issue. So if you go and it's determined that you have BRCA, which increases risk of breast cancer, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes. What do you do with that information? So I just Googled BRCA positive, what do I do now? And here's what I saw. They sent me to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. So their solution, if you are BRCA positive, that means it increases your risk of breast cancer by anywhere from 45 to 65%. Again, we'll get into that in a minute on whether or not it's 100% true or not. But so they tell you that's your risk. So what you need to do is more mammograms. So early detection. Mammograms are not early detection. The cancer has been there for usually 4 to 6 years by the time they can pick it up. So I would say that's late detection. But basically, it's just more screening to find the cancer sooner. Notice it says nothing about prevention, right? So it's just more screenings to find the problem sooner. Or the cancer sooner. And then, or you could do preventative surgery, which is like a preventative double mastectomy where they remove your breast so you don't get breast cancer. Again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's not something I would want to do. And then here's what happens when you do get breast cancer. You're more likely to get triple negative breast cancer. So chemotherapy is the most effective way. So basically, you can do more mammograms, you can have your breast removed, and then you can do chemo. So if that's the information that you get from taking the BRCA test, I wouldn't want to know that I had it anyway, because there's a big chance that I wouldn't get it even if I didn't know, right? There's a big chance that I wouldn't have breast cancer anywhere. My wife would. So what I would do with that information is something different though. So if my wife got diagnosed with BRCA, if you look up here, mutated BRCA1 and BRCA2, it's about a 50% increased risk of getting breast cancer compared to 12% if you have normal BRCA. So if you might look at that and go, wow, I don't want breast cancer. I want to be around for my kids, my grandkids. So I'll just have my breast removed. And that's what happened with Angelina Jolie. She chose to have a double mastectomy, even though she did not have breast cancer. She had BRCA. And the frustrating thing for me is she didn't have all the information. And that breaks my heart because she went through that horrific surgery and ordeal. And I guarantee she didn't have the information that I'm going to talk about. So one of the bits of information that they've come out with after this, these were the people that studied BRCA. And they said it's important to note that most research related to the BRCA gene has done on large families with many individuals affected with cancer. Okay. So it was done on large families. It wasn't done on a bunch of different individuals. And they said because family members share a proportion of their genes, right? Because you share genes with your family members, but often their environment, it's possible that a large number of cases seen in these families may be due to, in part to other genetic or environmental factors. Environmental means lifestyle. Remember, we talked about your computer and your nervous system and the things that you're doing with thoughts, toxins, and traumas to change your environment. So what you actually get from your family is not just your genes. You also get what? You get habits. So what they're saying is that the risk estimates may not be accurate. It may not be a 45% or 55% increased risk because they've really only studied these families, and families don't just share genes, they share habits. If they had done a bunch of different people from all different cultures that shared all different kind of eating habits and exercise habits, that would be one thing, but they took largely American families, right, that shared, the American eating habits and standard American diet. So if you don't want to, have those numbers be 55 to 67%, you can actually change those in the environment. Okay. So here's the protocol. And here's what I would be doing if I was diagnosed with, or my wife was diagnosed with BRCA. So just a couple things. These are from PubMed. Vitamin D and triple negative BRCA1 deficient breast cancer. What they're saying here is that vitamin D, the people that had the lowest levels of vitamin D were the ones that were developing triple negative breast cancer, which is the BRCA version a lot of times. So what can you do to prevent that? Raise your vitamin D, which we'll talk about in a second. Another one, this is vitamin B6, no, B12, I'm sorry, B9, so folic acid. They also talk about vitamin B6 as well down here. B6 didn't dramatically significantly affect breast cancer risk. It did significantly infect people affect women with BRCA1, but not BRCA2. But the important one up here, when they took folic acid, like the rat that I was showing you, you had a 55% decrease in risk. 55% decrease in risk. So if we go back to this, your increased risk of breast cancer was 55%. Well, just taking folic acid reduce your risk. So that's another thing I recommend is a good B12 or B complex vitamin, which I'll show you in a minute. So what do you do if you don't want to get breast cancer? Or what do you do if you have BRCA1? First, thoughts. All the previous things that I talked about. I'm not in control of my health. I'm a victim of my genes. My doctor's in control of my health. You got to get rid of those thoughts. You got to take control of those things. But there's a lot of other research on if you have a pessimistic outlook on life, you're much more likely to develop breast cancer because that, again, affects your immune system. So we want to be, telling ourselves positive things as much as we possibly can. I have a son who has, he's a teenager, has a lot of pretty pessimistic outlook a lot of times. And I need to be constantly reminding him of the good things in his life, the things he can be grateful for in his life. And that offsets that pessimistic outlook. And we should be doing that every single day, getting up and thinking about the things that you're grateful for. That changes the environment of your body, which changes whether those genes are expressed. Number 2, toxins. So here's a couple things. A weight gain of 12 pounds after age 18 doubles your risk of breast cancer. So if you weigh 12 pounds more than you did when you were 18, you doubled your risk of breast cancer. So if you lose those 12 pounds, you should reduce your risk of breast cancer. This should, go the other direction. So what do you do to lose that weight? There's a ton of things that we can help you with, right? So if you want to talk to us about weight loss, please talk to us in the office. I have all kinds of different programs. I wrote a book that has a program called 20 and 30 where I've seen people lose 20 pounds in 30 days, has a full meal plan. We can make sure you get that. If you follow it, it's foolproof, right? So just losing weight reduces your risk of breast cancer. Sugar feeds cancer. So the more sugar you eat, the more it actually feeds cancer in your body. That's been absolutely proven for cancer cells. They ferment sugar. And then, so reducing sugar reduces your breast or your cancer risk. Low vitamin D. So this is a study from Journal of Epidemiology that found if women had vitamin D levels of 60 to 80, it would prevent 49,000 cases of breast cancer every single year. Okay, so here's an important thing. You can get a test from a company called Everlywell, and you can get your vitamin D tested. If you don't know what your vitamin D level is, pause this right now. Go to Everlywell, pay the 40 or 50 bucks, get the test sent to you, and you just do a little finger stick and you send that out, and they'll tell you your vitamin D level. It doesn't matter how much vitamin D you take, it matters how much you absorb. So I can't tell you how much you need to take without knowing what your level actually is. So that's what you need to do is get that vitamin D tested, and we need to make sure you're taking enough to get you between 60 and 80. And I could show you how to do that. If you just bring me the number, I'll ask you how much are you taking now? Okay, well, here's how much you need to do to get into that 60 to 80 nanograms per mole. Most important number you're going to know regarding your health, more than your cholesterol number, blood pressure number, or anything, is your vitamin D number. You can also get that tested at a doctor if you want to. And the last is a B complex. Taking a good basic B complex, which you can get just about anywhere, is a good idea for most people because B vitamins have thousands of different functions in your body, including methylating, which can help your mood, can help, turn off the effects of the BRCA gene. So just some simple things that you can do from a nutrition standpoint. And then trauma. So this is how your spine is functioning. It's a great study at NYU Cancer Prevention Hospital. They found that they studied chiropractic patients, cancer patients, and just the regular public. And people that got adjusted chiropractic patients had a 200% better functioning immune system than regular medical patients, and a 400% better functioning immune system than cancer patients. That's what happens every time you get adjusted. That's one of the main reasons I get adjusted and will get adjusted the rest of my life, is because my nervous system is what's controlling my immune system, and I want my nervous system functioning at 100%. That's what happens when you get adjusted. We're not getting rid of your neck pain and your back pain. We're removing interference to your nervous system functioning at 100%. And when that happens, your immune system goes up. That's why you see a lot of people come in the office. They're like, man, I don't get sick anymore. I've been taking care of this one couple for almost 20 years now. And like, yeah, we come because we don't get sick. All the people around us get sick. We used to get the cold and flu all the time. We don't get that stuff anymore. I mean, that's one of the main reasons that I get adjusted. And then regular exercises decrease your risk of breast cancer by 50%. So if you're worried about breast cancer, do those things. So vitamin D is the one that I recommend here at our office. We have vitamin D and vitamin K, and you need D and K together. That's the one that I recommend. We have that in the office. Super, super important, but also very absorbable to help you get to the 60 to 80 nanograms per mole in your blood. Okay. Let me get through to here. Okay. The next one is, actually, I'm gonna go back to this for a second. Somebody asked, what about mammograms? I prefer thermography to mammograms. Mammograms have a lot of false positives. They result in a lot of unnecessary biopsies and treatments. So my wife doesn't get mammograms. My wife does thermography, and we have a partner that we work with that does thermography. It can pick up any abnormalities in your breast much sooner. Tell you other very important things and give you a good baseline. So if you're questioning, should I get a mammogram, should I get a thermogram, or which one should I do, or should I do both, that I could refer you to somebody that can talk to you about that as well. Okay. So beta MYHC gene, this is cardiomyopathy. So my uncle actually died of this. He died at 51 in his sleep. His heart was the size of a basketball when he died. And we didn't know this. It was sudden. And that happened probably because this gene got turned on. Now, he turned that gene on because he had, his lifestyle was horrific. He had gout, which means his diet was really bad. He drank too much. A lot of things were not going right from a standpoint of lifestyle there. So he had actually turned that gene on, most likely. And the way that he did it was through these toxins, thoughts, and trauma. So he ate a ton of sugar and processed food. He didn't eat the right fats, and those things cause inflammation. Okay. So this is from the study that's looking at this gene. It says we've identified many genes in children in which the DNA methylation state appears to be influenced by their mother's diet early in pregnancy. So also, my grandmother did not have a good diet while she was pregnant with him because she never had a good diet. She probably passed that gene on to him, turned on, and he just kept it turned on with his lifestyle. But inflammation from poor diet from conception, prior to conception, causes DNA changes and activates these genes, right? So he probably had that giant DNA gene, or the gene turned on, passed to him from my grandmother. But then he could have turned it off by decreasing the sugar in his body that he put in his body, and eating good fats. So the good fats are going to be olive oil, avocados, avocado oil, almonds, nuts, seeds, olive oil, and avoiding the bad fats, which are all the processed things like canola oil, partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, sunflower oil, all of those. If you want more information on this, we have a bunch of webinars on this as well. But those things cause inflammation. Thoughts, poor sleep and high stress. Okay, so if you have poor sleep and high stress, that also causes inflammation. Trauma, lack of cardiovascular activity. He never worked out, never exercised, also causes inflammation. So you see how this gene got turned on. So if you don't want to have that gene turned on in your body, what do? Decrease the sugar, eat the good fats, make sure you're sleeping more, reduce your stress levels, which is, we can all do that. There's meditation we can do. There's journal writing we can do. There are tools. So instead of just saying, oh, I'm stressed, you don't understand my life, I'm so stressed out. Well, you can do something about that if you choose to. Again, humans can do hard things, right? So we can choose to change our schedule a little bit. We can change our outlook on life. We can do a lot of things to reduce our stress levels. And that would pay huge dividends for you. And I have a whole webinar on stress too. So how you can change your physical, chemical, and emotional stress, and some things that you can do specifically. And that's why, again, I want you to come to these workshops, because this is the stuff that we teach at the workshops. I'm not spending a lot of time on stress today, but like our next workshop, we're going to spend a lot of time on stress and how to reduce your stress levels scientifically, and what that does to your adrenal glands. Okay. All right. And then the last one here is ApoE4. So ApoE4 is the Alzheimer's gene. ApoE4 is a fatty acid defect. And what happens if you have an ApoE4 defect, your brain isn't able to get the fat that it needs to burn the fat for fuel. As you get older, your brain burns fat for fuel rather than sugar. And if your brain can't burn fat for fuel because metabolically it's not able to, then that's where you develop Alzheimer's disease, because these things called beta amyloid protein. So ApoE4, if you have that, it increases your risk of Alzheimer's by like 40 or 50%. Again, if you don't do anything to turn that off. So what's the protocol for ApoE4? Number one, thoughts would be, we put thoughts are basically the thoughts that you have and the stress that you have and the sleep that you get or not get. So sleep, you need 7 to 8 hours a night minimum. Okay, 7 to 8 hours a night minimum for sleep. If you're not getting that, you're not draining your waste products out of your brain. That's when your body actually drains the beta amyloid, the metabolites that build up in your brain. That's where it drains it and replenishes your brain when you're sleeping. If you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, you're not getting that replenishing effect on the brain, and that increases your risk of Alzheimer's from these buildup of these metabolites. So what I recommend for anybody dealing with sleep issues is Insomnitol. This is the one that I recommend to everybody. It's the one that I take. So this has herbs, but also melatonin I don't recommend for a lot of people because it's a very incomplete piece of the puzzle. The other two pieces of the puzzle are 5-HTP and L-theanine. 5-HTP helps your body develop or make serotonin. L-theanine helps your body make GABA. Serotonin helps you stay asleep. So if you're waking up a lot at 2, 3, 4 o'clock at night, that's usually a serotonin issue. And GABA is what turns your brain off. If you're laying there at night and your brain's going and going and going, GABA is what turns that off. And a lot of us don't have enough GABA, in our brains at night because of a lot of stress and some other things that happen. Stress is GABA is called nature's Valium. So it calms the brain down. So Insomnitol is a chewable. You take it before you go to bed, and it helps all of those. So it gives you the melatonin, gives you the 5-HTP for serotonin, and also gives you the L-theanine for GABA. So absolutely recommend that. We always have that at the office. Number two, toxins, though. So I was doing some research on this okay, how do we, if your brain has a metabolic issue, like if your body has a metabolic issue burning fat, can you do something about that? And the answer is yes, you can, largely through your diet or through supplements. So what the researchers were showing is to completely correct that ApoE4 dysfunction, your body needs choline every day. Okay, choline is it's an intermediate that helps your body burn fat. Okay, you've heard of carnitine, N-acetylcysteine; those things do similar things, but choline helps your body and your brain specifically burn fat. So and deliver fat to the brain. So choline, you can take like phosphatidylcholine. You can get supplements that have choline in them. Or you can eat 2 eggs a day. So 2 egg yolks have enough choline that basically turn off that ApoE4 gene, which is one of my main breakfast every day is 2 eggs. I eat 2 eggs, strawberries or blueberries most days, a little hot sauce on there. And that's basically turning off that gene that I'm pretty sure is in my family based on the number of people that have Alzheimer's. So it's just eating 2 eggs a day. So simple as that. Number 2, are you a sugar burner or a fat burner? If you eat too much sugar, which most people do, if you're a man, you should have no more than 35 grams of added sugar per day. If you're a woman, no more than 30 grams of added sugar per day. Most people get 3, 4, 5 times that much added sugar in a day. And if you give your body a lot of sugar, it's going to become adept at burning sugar, and it's not going to be able to burn fat. So if you want to be a fat burner, what do you think you need to eat? You need to eat more fat. You need to eat less sugar and more good fats. Okay. And that's what's called a low glycemic diet. So if you have my cruise ship or nursing home book and you have the 20 and 30, if you don't have that, talk to us. We can get that supplement to you. You can actually give it to you in a PDF. But if you have the book, then the 20 and 30 plan or the advanced plan, that is a low glycemic diet. That's very important because low glycemic means you're decreasing the sugar and you're increasing the fat in your body. We're going to do a whole webinar on this. If you're watching this before October 10th, we're going to do an entire webinar on how to make this happen for you. And I'll go through the glycemic index a little bit more here. So let's look at the glycemic index. So low glycemic means your body is decreasing sugar, right? And that's going to increase your body's ability to burn fat. Also decreases your insulin levels, which is good for diabetes and prediabetes, for inflammation, for a lot of reasons you want to eat low glycemic. So low glycemic in this purpose, mean less than 55 on the glycemic index. That means how quickly things turn into sugar in your body. This is a measure of how quickly things turn into sugar in your body. You can Google glycemic index and you can look at any food that you're eating. So the low glycemic these are carbohydrates or starchy carbohydrates. Now there are foods that are lower than 55, but they're not starchy carbohydrates. So if you eat vegetable. If you eat broccoli, broccoli is going to be much lower than 55. But these are the carbohydrates, the higher glycemic index foods typically. So if you're going to pick one of these foods, if you want to have some type of starchy carbohydrate, instead of eating white rice, which is above 70, which turns to sugar very quickly in your body, a better choice would be over here eating like barley or quinoa, which is lower on the glycemic index. Instead of eating a biscuit or muffin, you could eat like something like Ezekiel bread, which is lower on the glycemic index. Instead of eating instant oatmeal, you could eat steel cut oats, which are lower on the glycemic index. So I eat a lot of these things in my diet: quinoa, sweet potatoes, peas, lentils, legumes, a lot of beans. We do a lot of these in our house, and we do very little of these in our house. Very little of these. Because this stuff is, I mean, it's as simple as that. That's nursing home food. You eat that stuff all the time, you're developing all the diseases that have put most people in a nursing home later on in their lives. And that's also what they feed them in a nursing home, which is crazy to me. It's what they feed you in a hospital, which again is crazy to me. I went to adjust a patient in the hospital recently. She had been really sick, and I went in there, and it was during mealtime, and it was like the most horrible food you could ever give her. It was like Jello, chocolate pudding, some type of like fried food with gravy on top of it. Like that's the last thing I would feed somebody who was trying to get well. So we want to eat these things lower on the glycemic index. Okay. So again, you can use what's in the cruise ship book. You could do with something like a paleo diet, which is low on the glycemic index, or you can just start tracking your glycemic index of your foods and choose the things that are lower on the glycemic index. Okay. And then last thing on Alzheimer's disease, which is super important. This is a study from PubMed again. It says decreased cerebral spinal fluid flow is associated with cognitive deficit in elderly patients. So cerebral spinal fluid is what bathes your brain and gets rid of waste products in your brain. Okay. So cerebral spinal fluid on an MRI is this white stuff right here. So if you see all that, that's all fluid, all that white. Anything you see white on an MRI is fluid. And you can see how it's all around the outside of the brain, and it actually drains down the spinal cord and then out through the lymphatic system. Okay. So it has to actually drain from your brain and then go down through the spinal cord and out through your lymphatic system. You want this healthy exchange of a cerebral spinal fluid, because if you have decreased cerebral spinal fluid, it's going to build up those toxins and metabolites in the brain that increase your risk of Alzheimer's disease. So if we look at this person with a nice normal curve, nice head on top of the shoulders, what do you see? Nice room for the cerebral spinal fluid. If you look at this person with forward head posture, completely straight neck, which is epidemic in people right now because of what we call tech neck, sitting on the computer too much, forward head posture. What's happening right here to the cerebral spinal fluid? It's being dammed up. There's no look how much cerebral spinal fluid is getting out of the brain here versus getting out of the brain there. It's almost being completely shut off. Who's at risk of dementia? This person. What does that have to do with chiropractic? The only thing that we do, and the reason that we're adjusting you, is to keep that channel open, right? And to keep that curve in your neck, which is why you're doing the rehab exercises at home, to keep that curve there, because you spend all day long like this on the computer with your head forward. So when we adjust you, that's what we're doing. Every time you get adjusted, that CSF is flowing better. You can actually do motion MRIs where you can see post-adjustment how much better the cerebral spinal fluid is flowing. So every time I get adjusted, I'm thinking my CSF is flowing. I don't want Alzheimer's disease. My brain's functioning better. That's another reason I get adjusted and well the rest of my life. So if you have anybody in your life who doesn't have that curve or has not had an x-ray, or their spine might look like that you love and care about, you need to get them to a chiropractor, get them to our office, and we'll help them. If that's your husband, if that's your wife, if that's your kids, anybody like that, this is not up for debate right there. Cerebral spinal fluid flow, decreased cerebral spinal fluid flow causes cognitive deficit in elderly patients. But it didn't start when they were elderly. It started when they were young. That takes time to develop. If we can fix this when we're young, you never end up with those cognitive deficits because that cerebral spinal fluid is flowing the way it's supposed to. So hopefully that gives you some inspiration on what you can do to make these changes. So remember, you're in control of your health. It's not your genes, it's your choices, and you're in control of your choices. So what I recommend is take a couple of things that we learned today. Maybe you need to get your vitamin D checked. Maybe you need to get on track with your chiropractic care. Maybe you need to change your diet and reduce the amount of sugar that you're eating. Whatever it is, maybe you need to start exercising. And you want to do those things. And remember, you can, and you're worth it. All right, you're absolutely worth it. And then the second thing I want you to do is spread the news. Share this with other people that need to know what you know, because they can get help from this as well. So until next time, it's Dr. Eric Shoemake. We'll talk to you soon.